Hi, it's Devon Naika from Retirement Wellness SA. Now, as you know, I specialize in helping government employees make one of the most important financial decisions of their life, which is should you retire or resign from the GEPF? Now, today, I want to share with you a case study of an individual, and I'm calling this the cost of bad advice. But at the start here, I want to pre-frame this because I want you to see the cost of bad advice. But at the same time, I want you to see the immense power of getting the right advice and what each of these two elements bring to you. So let's start off on the iPad, and I'll give you some history of the set of circumstances for this member. So this particular member had opted to resign from GEPF, so the money is being taken away. And as you know, when a member resigns from GEPF, the money has to move into what's called an approved fund. So let's go here. We'll call this GEPF. And then this is the approved fund. So the money has to move to this approved fund. Now, the first challenge, the first piece of poor advice that the member had received was there is not just one approved fund. So you might know of an approved fund called a preservation fund, but a preservation fund is one option that is available to you. And it's not the only option. Although what I've noticed is it tends to become the go-to vehicle. In this particular case, and perhaps even in your case, what you want to do is make sure you're analyzing what options are available in terms of approved funds before you start investing money. And in the case of this member, only one option was provided, which was the preservation fund. Now, each member's circumstances are different. And for this member, that was the first move that was incorrect. It was the wrong vehicle. What's the problem with it? Well, being inside the wrong vehicle means no matter what happens, you always are going to have a problem with something because the vehicle itself is incorrect. Can it be changed? Yes, the member could change from this vehicle and go into the correct vehicle. So if this was the wrong one, the member could hop into the correct one. What's the problem? By making that move, so if the member had to transition, the member's already in the wrong approved fund, but goes into the correct approved fund. Just by making that change, there is going to be a cost factor that a member has to consider. A member also has to consider the markets. So you want to think about what's the impact of the market. So to come away from here, you have to sell shares. The timing that you're selling those shares, if the markets are down, that presents additional risk. When you're purchasing into the correct approved fund, again, the timing becomes an issue. Plus, there's a delay from when this transitions to this. It's a delay you can't avoid. And again, if the markets are not good at that time, you could end up losing money in the process. So these are some of the challenges. When I speak about approved fund here, I'm not speaking about a particular insurance company. So notice throughout all the videos, I wouldn't speak about Annual Mutual or Sanlam or Discovery or Momentum. We're not talking about those companies. So every single company would offer you some kind of approved fund, but we're talking about the actual vehicle itself. Like how we're speaking about preservation fund, each company has a preservation fund. But again, that's not your only option. So this was the first challenge that the member had. It was, I'm putting this down to, the consultant not sitting with the member to understand the full set of circumstances. And this is what I want to impress upon you in terms of you getting your advice. The second challenge that came along here is on the part of the member, and this is natural because we all want to have this. And this is from a cost perspective. But more than a cost perspective, I'm going to call it value for money. Value for money. And the reason I say this is when you're doing any kind of investing, as was the case here for this member, moving out of GEPF into an approved fund, there's going to be a cost naturally to the consultant that's helping you. In this case, the member wanted that cost to be negotiated. So let's say this was the cost, the member wanted to reduce it, and the member happened to find someone who was happy to reduce that. And it's normal. You can easily find someone who wants to reduce their fees in order to secure your business. What I want to share with you is, ultimately, you end up getting what you pay for. So in terms of your value, you're paying less. Is that consultant still going to do the same amount of work that would have been done had it been the normal rate? And what is this going to cost you down the line? And I'll show you as we go along how much this is costing this particular member. So from a value for money perspective, or from a cost perspective, this member wanted to keep it as low as possible. And it's natural. It's natural. What I want to teach you is, when financial planning is done right, that cost is not even a factor. It's not even a factor. So if the financial planning is done well, it covers this cost, plus it can easily grow your wealth, you see? But this takes a lot of time in order to get right. An easy example for me to compare this with would be a GP and a cardiologist. With a GP, you're still getting good value, but a GP is not equipped for handling issues relating to the heart in terms of, let's say, open heart surgery. Now, when it comes to retirement planning, yes, you can use a general advisor to assist you with that process, but using a specialist, someone who's focusing on retirement, someone who's focusing on GEPF specifically, that person's a lot more experienced, has a lot more knowledge, would probably have a lot more techniques, tax saving abilities, different ways of thinking about investing, but understands you better as a government employee, in which case the value would be a lot more. And if the value is a lot more, it more than equates for the cost itself. So that's the second challenge that had happened with this member in terms of reducing the fee. But let's look at the knock-on effect. This particular member then had a retirement annuity. So here's a retirement annuity, and the member matured from this retirement annuity. So if you can picture now, there's money that's sitting inside a preservation fund. We'll call it here. This was the preservation fund. And then there's money that's sitting inside the retirement annuity. So money in here and money in here. Now, from what the member had done was the member withdrew the money that was inside the retirement annuity and was able to get all of this in cash. What's the problem? The problem is because there was no advice given behind this. So again, this is why planning needs to be holistic for you if you want to get this right. Because there was no advice given behind this, there's a massive tax implication because of this later on for the member when the member is actually going to retire from this preservation fund. There's a huge tax implication as a result of it. Now, it's okay if the member was made aware in advance, but in this case, the member was not made aware. And as a result of it, it's going to come back to bite the member. So now we've got tax here as a major issue to focus on. Let me tell you, the tax that this member is going to pay eventually would far exceed this saving here, would far exceed it, just from a tax perspective. The next challenge comes in terms of investing. What I want you to think about here is investing will seem to be a gamble. It's going to seem as something that is a big risk to you when you are not taken through the process of how to create what I call an investment strategy. In this particular case, the member was provided with a range of funds and 5 funds were chosen. So 5 different funds were chosen. I'm going to list them out here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What was not explained to the member is why Fund 1, why Fund 2, why Fund 3. So remember, when you are investing, you've got a particular expectation. See, you have an expectation. You know what it is that you want to achieve from your investment. You know that. If this expectation is not communicated to these funds, see, if these funds don't speak to this, you're never going to have that peace of mind you're looking for. Meaning, the moment that you hear in the news there's a country at war, the moment you hear about some market dip, you're not going to sleep well at night, because there's always going to be this fear that one of these funds could perform poorly, and that could drop your investment down significantly. In this particular case, the member is a very conservative person and does not want to have a lot of risk. But 2 of the funds chosen are very high risk in nature, extremely high risk in nature. They require long-term in order to give high returns. And these were the funds selected for the member. So as a result, it now exposes this member to a lot of market volatility. See, lots of market volatility. In which case, for this particular member, it's not going to be a pleasant journey, as you can imagine. The moment the markets dip, and especially because if you've got many years of service, chances are the pool of capital that you have is significant. So let me use an example. If you have 5 million Rand that's sitting inside your fund, and you have 5,000 Rand sitting inside a fund, if the markets dip, and that dip is 10% drop in the markets, on a 5,000 Rand investment, it's not a lot of money. See, 10% of the 5,000 is just 500 Rand. But on a 5 million Rand investment, that's 500,000 Rand. See? And if you had to have that loss, if you had a 500,000 Rand loss, how would you feel? How would that affect you emotionally? And how would that loss affect you in terms of your peace of mind from the perspective of you not running out of capital? So that's the focus behind this exercise. What you want to do is you actually want to have the advisor understand what your expectation of the investment is, and then create a strategy that's now focused towards bringing that expectation to life. Now, one more thing I want to share with you. From a tax perspective, just go back onto the retirement annuity, because the contributions to the retirement annuity had ceased because the member had matured from it. It's now resulted in this member paying more tax. So whatever income this member is earning, there's more tax that the member is paying, which means it's still a leaking bucket, still money getting thrown away to SARS. And then the last key point that I want to share with you here, critical point for you, is from the perspective of relationship. So ultimately, what you're aiming for, especially if you are resigning, is you want to put yourself in a position where the people that you love and care for can gain access to this money when you are not around. So you have this pool of capital here. It's feeding you with an income. And at some point, when you are not around, you want this to be a legacy to pass on to your spouse, to your kids, to your grandkids. In order to make that happen, I want you to think about this carefully. If you are not in the picture, who then makes this possible? So if you are not in the picture, who's making this possible? In this case, naturally, you're going to expect it to be the advisor. But what if the advisor doesn't know your family? So what if the advisor doesn't know your spouse, if the advisor doesn't know your kids? Then it means that the insurance company, whoever that insurance company is, this could be the Old Mutual, the Sanlam, the Discovery, the Momentum, is then going to communicate directly through to your family. In this case, there's a massive tax implication if this money is not managed properly. So yes, your family could gain access to this money, but at what cost? Because the tax implication could be extremely severe. And there's a little bit of a, wouldn't say a loophole, but SARS has a different way of taxing this money, even though it's passing on to your family, which means the tax again would be higher than how you would normally expect the tax to be. On a capital of 5 million, what if you end up paying tax in the region of 1.5 million? How would that change the way that your family would live their life? And if that was the case, is that how you'd want this to be? Would you want to go through this, I would say, struggle of resigning, having that focus, knowing what you're going through and getting all the elements? Would you want to go through those things without making sure all these elements are ticked and done properly? All of what I'm sharing with you now is a major issue for the member. Yes, it can get fixed, but in order to fix it, it's a process and it's going to become costly. And the cost is going to be a lot more than what this member could have saved or could have paid if this was done properly at inception. Now, I hope this video has been extremely helpful for you. I'd want to hear from you, so post your comments below. More importantly, I want you to see from this video that it is possible for you to resign and be immensely successful with your resignation. Meaning you can have all these elements ticked off, you can get yourself into the correct fund, you can get immense value for money. In fact, I can tell you if the investment strategy is done well, there's no reason why you can't recover these costs inside of your first year of investing, which means going forward, you can make a huge amount of money. In fact, inside of the masterclass or with members that I've helped on a one-on-one basis, usually this cost is covered even before we start investing, before we even start anything. There's so many ways in which you could get huge value for money. And then from a tax perspective, I want you to see there are multiple ways in which you can have tax saved. But again, this needs to be holistically done. So it can't focus on one specific area. It's got to be on everything. And then from a return perspective, from an investment perspective, I also want you to see if this is done properly at inception, there's no reason why you should be feeling uncomfortable or where you don't have the peace of mind or feeling stressed about the markets or even concerned that, hey, the markets are going to dip. If it's done right, you can just do what you want to do, which means enjoy your life after no longer working and let the investment strategy work well. And guess what? You can have even more frequent reviews now because your strategy is how it should be. In fact, that's what I want to encourage you. That's one way in which you know that this is working well. If you have regular reviews of your investment, then you know it's working well. See, if the financial advisor is confident to do that. And then the last part is from a relationship perspective. Remember, ultimately, you're aiming to first make sure you have enough money so that you can live comfortably. You're never going to run out. And if that's the case, you're never running out of money. It means there's always going to be some pool of money left behind. And that pool of money ultimately needs to go to some place. Wherever it's going to, whomever you want to leave your legacy to, you need to know that your advisor is guiding you in that direction to help you with it. And also so that they know, your family, your loved ones are in a position to know who this person is and what steps they need to take in order to maximize the benefit and not have to worry about losing a huge chunk of this to tax. Again, if you found the video helpful, please click the like sign and subscribe to the YouTube channel so that I'm able to produce, or so that you're able to get new videos as soon as we put them out. If there's something that you need guidance with on your GEPF, whether it's retiring or resigning, please post a question so that we're able to have a look at it and perhaps I can create a video like this for you. And if you are looking for a solution where it covers all of these elements so that you don't make these mistakes, you're welcome to reach out to me so that I can offer you more guidance on a one-on-one basis.